Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. I hope that everyone's hunt for Purity of the Throne skins is going well. I've been trying to hunt for some sites after work, and I'm now at around 20 sub-capital skins that I've gathered on my own. So I actually feel that the metric for them to drop is pretty fair. It's not like I'm getting that many doubles and triples. It's also quite okay. I actually have quite a few Tech 2 skins, which I'm decently surprised that I'm getting so many of those. So I actually think it's basically a chance for every single skin to drop that is the same across the board. Maybe there will be one or two exceptions, like maybe the Titans or the Capital skins or something like that. But I actually already have 2 Revelation skins as well, so it's a bit strange. I'm also only using the sub-capital skins because I don't really plan to fly Mars Supers or anything like that, so those I'm planning to sell later on, and of course that means that the extra product this week are going to be the Purity of the Throne skins. But of course we will, as always, start with some plex, so let's jump in on that at 120. And the plex jumped up quite substantially, 1,122,000,000 for the sellers, 1,071,000,000 for the buyers. That's a pretty decent jump up that we should see on the chart, and we do. We can in fact see the 5-day moving average taking off quite sharply. We can also see the margin between the 5-day moving average and the 20-day moving average still increasing at the tail end. This may have some legs, but there is a major reason why this might have happened, and that is of course that there is a special bonus that you're getting if you're staying subbed between now and the November release, which actually just ended. So we may see a slowdown in the increase in price because that ended. A lot of people may have just gone into final purchases in order to make sure that their accounts would stay subbed through the next 2 months in order to get those special goodies, which is like a Gnosis version of the Destroyer. You get a skin, you get a suit, you get stuff like that. I'm subbed on a 1-year plan, so for me it's not really a problem, but I think that could be the major reason why demand increased so much all of a sudden. So of course from 900 million, you had decent purchase chances at 900 million, up to 1.1 billion is pretty decent. If you want to sell for some profits, I wouldn't blame you, but I'm going to hold on until after the November release, because I'm more looking at December, January, which is usually a top 4 plexes because it's more activity through the winter. And of course with the alpha clones, I actually think that plex has more potential than it is showing right now. But this is a nice jump up. If you want to take advantage of that, you can do so, of course. Next up, the multiple pilot train certificates. That one hesitated a little bit, but it did jump ahead of plexes to go to almost 1.1 billion on the chart. So it pushed back a little bit, but now of course with the increase in plex prices, this one went up as well substantially, 1.128 billion for the sellers, 1,030,000,000 for the buyers. As you can see, still a larger margin between sellers and buyers for the training certificate. Next up, we get the body resculpt. That one is actually settling down at 240 million ISK. Actually, I'm a bit surprised because once again it's showing that it is not following plexus very closely. Now we're just basically settling down at 240 million, while plex are shooting up in the last few weeks. So this is definitely once again showing that the body resculpt is its own market. It has its own mechanics, very low volumes at the moment, and a completely different chart. Skill extractors could be interesting. They should be shooting up, and they are shooting up to 255 million on the chart. Sellers are at 258 million, buyers are at 247 million. What keeps surprising me are just the volumes. This is still almost 1.5 front pages of new sell orders coming in the last 24 hours, and we're still talking 60, 56, 63, 38, 40, 40. It's just crazy numbers, very, very high. And that just keeps going now that we've had these for, let's take a quick look at these, probably 6 to 7 months. Volumes have just been able to stay this high, it's just completely crazy to me. A lot of people must be using these as speculation as well. But we can clearly see on the chart here that the correlation between skill extractors and plexes is very, very strong. Now, what should be interesting is to take a look at skill injectors, because last week when skill extractors were also going up, skill injectors were actually falling back. And let's take a look at that. They jump back up, and I did say that anything below 600 million to me felt like a good opportunity to pick some of these up. We went as low as 560 million on the chart, pretty much a no-brain buy opportunity if you had ISK to spare for it. Me, I'm saving for the industrial arrays, but yeah, a lot of people I think did follow up on that and basically had the same idea, and as a result we can now see skill injectors heading back towards 590 million on the chart. They are back at 603 million on the seller side, 574 million on the buyers. So obviously everything below 600 million throughout the increase in price here in pretty much the last week, September 1st, it's actually the last 2 weeks, must have felt like a decent investment to most people, which I completely agree with, considering that Plex are now slowly heading to 1.2 billion. So there you go, nice increase in skill injectors. It was a great opportunity to buy. I didn't take advantage of it because I'm saving up my my ISK, but I felt it was pretty much a no-brainer to do this if you had the ISK for it. After that, let's take a look at some minerals. 645 sounds good. As always, we'll start with the small stuff. Here is some titanium trying to work its way back up towards 610. That's actually quite okay to look at. You can see the clear decrease in price since April throughout the summer, with low points at 5.6 ISK, then a bit of a jump back up towards 6 ISK, and now we're trying to hold on to that price range. So 620 for the sellers, 593 for the buyers. Demand is still winning out here, 2 billion, 2 billion, 1.6 billion. Those are pretty big numbers compared to the 500 million coming in here, 200 million here. So it's pretty obvious that there is still more demand than supply. And as a result, I actually think that there is a very good chance that Plex will go above 6 ISK and stay above 6 ISK in the foreseeable future. I would consider this to actually be an okay price, 620 for titanium. You can consider selling your titanium if you're actively mining that, or if you have huge stocks or something like that. Although I do think that it can go a bit higher throughout the summer. This is not looking as bad as some of the other minerals. Such as pyrite, yeah, that just keeps going for ever lower bottoms here. 9 ISK does seem to be something it's been playing with in the last few months several times, but it keeps trying to actually break that, which is pretty interesting. So obviously pyrite I would not sell at 9 ISK. Sellers are at 881, someone is coming in 913. Is actually the price that you can look at here for the sellers, and 880 for the buyers. 150 million, 100 million, not that many new sell orders, so obviously people are very hesitant to go towards that 9 ISK on the sell orders, because that could basically push the market even lower all of a sudden. It would basically push the market in buy opportunity territory right away. But the buyers here, they're coming in with 300 million, but at 858. So there is little supply coming in, but there's also a little fresh demand here as well. This is a pretty opportunistic buy order here, also willing to buy in bulk of 500,000 units here. So pretty interesting. The pyrite market is basically dead, and I wouldn't be selling into this stuff. I'm stocking up on all of my pyrite myself at the moment. Next up we have Mexalon. Had to give ground, of course. This is the story that we all know. The one high-sec mineral that managed to stay pretty high throughout the summer was Mexalon. 74 ISK on average, pretty much. Was not bad. Definitely something that at some point was going to end, considering that all of the other high-sec minerals were under pressure. People were continuously moving towards mining more Mexalon, and of course here we had to give ground back to 64 ISK. So 10 ISK loss here. That's definitely a pretty decent chunk of profits gone, but honestly it's managing to hold on at 64 ISK. We're still selling just above that. Buyers are at 61, 62. Again, if you want to sell some Mexalon, I don't think it's a huge mistake. I actually think that if you want to liquidate, if you need some ISK, that this is an okay thing to do. But I also think that when pyrite is going to take off, when Isogen is going to come back, which it just started to do apparently, then the Mexalon and Tritanium are going to be pulled a little bit higher as well, in my opinion. So if you can not sell, that's what I would advise to do. But if you have to, sure, Mexalon and Tritanium look quite okay. Next up, Isogen, after reaching a bottom of less than 80 ISK, that's pretty damn crazy, we actually shot back up. So I would say that investors made their move here between 80 and 88 ISK, probably 90 ISK on the seller side. Let's take a look at that. Nope, 86, 82, so I would say 85, 86 was the range that people were looking for to invest in Isogen, and 81.67 is still extremely low for the buyer side of things. So honestly, despite this pullback a little bit from Isogen towards 86 ISK, I would still not sell. I think that this is too low of a price, and of course we're coming off of a pretty much a 6-month low here of like 79 ISK or something like that. So this jump up is just investors seeing the 6-month low and saying, all right, it's time to pounce on this. Let's buy up some Isogen stocks that we can pick up for 80 to 85 ISK, and that's why we see this increase in price here, because all of those sell orders are basically gone. But the buyers are still lagging behind, trying to pull the price down towards 82 ISK here. So 8 million units, 3.5 million units, 4 million units, those are the numbers on the buyer side. 6 million, 7.5 million, 2 million, 5 million, those are the numbers on the seller side. Still a pretty balanced situation for the low price of Isogen here. Next up, we've got Noxium, that was also playing with 6-month lows, and it still is heading for 400 ISK once again. 379 ISK for the buyers, 414.60 for the sellers. I've already experienced that it's pretty tricky actually to pick up any Noxium at these low prices on the buyer side. You do have to go towards 400 ISK to be sure that your buy order gets filled, but yeah, the chart is once again under pressure. I think we'll continue to see these bouncing motions off of 400 ISK, as investors do realize that Noxium at 400 ISK is a real bargain. Nothing coming in the last 24 hours, just a little bit at 420, but overall Noxium just like basically just like pyrite is dead in the water when it comes to demand, and so any supply decreases the price. People then don't want to sell anymore. Some investors move in, you get a bit of a jump up, but it's really playing games at the bottom of the barrel here, in my opinion, for Noxium. When it comes to the nullsec stuff, let's take a look at some Zydrine here. Once again going down, that's definitely pretty interesting, despite very high volumes here, going down towards 1000 ISK on a median day price. That is definitely not too good. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, sellers still coming in here, 2 million here, bring the price down below 1100 ISK. Buyers are at just above 1000 ISK, and it's still under pressure. Quite interesting. I'd be willing to put some ISK into that as a bit of an investment, especially on the buyer side of things. Let's say 1050 ISK, considering the rest of the chart here. I think that's not bad to stock up on more Zydrine for this one. So that's probably something I'm going to do for like a couple 100 million or something like that, I think. Next up, Megasite was also under pressure a little bit, but it's not as drastic as Zydrine just yet, heading towards 1250 on the charts. It's still in between the bottom and the previous bottom and the previous high point, so I would say that it is still not exactly an investment that you're going to make if you're picking up Megasite at the current price range, but if you're planning to use it, like I'm planning to use some minerals later on with the industrial arrays, then of course buying up some Megasite as you're able at this point is actually a pretty good thing to do, in my opinion. Not as an investment, but just to make sure that you have some stocks ready in case the price does shoot up once again on maybe a nullsec war, some nullsec manipulation or stuff like that. If then you have some stocks ready so you can weather that storm, I think it just makes sense to be purchasing at this point, considering how we've been going down here. And then finally we have Morphite as well, still under pressure to my surprise. So 9000 846 for the sellers, 9,500 for the buyers. Once again, an opportunity to move in. That means that my investment must have triggered. My buy order must have gone through at this point. I think so. That's pretty good. Unless it's this one. It's actually this one, 9,400. I was trying to really pick him up on the cheap. Is this mine? I'm not sure. I'll have to check on my Morphyte investment. If not, I'm willing to put one up right above here and see if I can actually pick some up, because buying below 10,000 is probably a good investment on Morphyte. It's been under pressure for a couple of months now. We're once again reaching 6-month lows. I think, yeah, if you have the ISK for it, you could again this week diversify into some minerals. Next up, Take One ships. Let's take a look at those. Pretty much 16 minutes. Let's put that down here. Again, I chose a different set of Take One ships all across the spectrum. This time I went with something that I can easily repeat for next week. Basically, if I have, which are Griffin, so if I have Caldari Galente for the frigates, then I'm switching to Amar Minmatar for destroyers, switching back to Caldari Galente for cruisers, etc. That's going to make it easier for me to just switch back every week without having to check which ones I had last week. So let's start with the Celestis here, Galente standard cruiser. For a Take One chart here, this is looking pretty good. Starts at 9.4 million, ends at 9 million. Right in between there are the averages. You go a bit lower at some point, you go a bit higher at some point, but there's really not much to say. Availability not that great. We're coming out of a low activity summer here, but sellers are at 9.6 million, buyers are at 8.2 million. Not much to say. This is an okay Take One chart, pretty stable. Next up, we've got the Courser, Amar Destroyer, actually going up in price quite significantly. Starts at let's say 1.15 million. We're ending up substantially higher. A bit of volatility to be spotted in July here as well, with a peak up to 1.8 million. Interesting. Then it went back down to its normal price of 1.1, but now it's taking off once again. Availability is actually decent, but they're selling for almost 1.5 million. Buyers are sticking to their guns at around 1 million for Coercers. So this is pretty interesting, actually. Some volatility, some opportunity in the Coercer market as well. I wonder if I have a blueprint original of Coercers. I think I do, but I'm not sure. It's something I'll need to check on. But this is unusual, in my opinion, for a Take One chart to be stable most of the time at its trade range of 1.1 to 1.2 million, but all the exceptions are to the high side, and now we're definitely increasing in price here as well. Very interesting. Perhaps alpha related speculation, but it's too early to tell. You do see some nice volume spikes as well. Maybe people do create Courser fleets. Next up, we've got the Griffin. I think that this chart shows a bit more of an anomaly. Normal price does seem to be below 500,000 ISK. So this price point, of course, creates all of this. But we're already pulling back. Let's take a look at just the sellers. Whoa, that's a big margin. Sellers 800,000 ISK, buyers 400,000 ISK. That's a huge margin, which is a bit strange. So the Griffin actually looks pretty cool now. Look at that. It does look pretty nice. But the low availability basically means that there is an opportunity, I think, to sell these for a profit. Griffin blueprint, not sure if I have that. If I don't, I'm definitely going to pick that up. Man, this is actually turning out to be pretty interesting to find some blueprints I might want to invest in. Courser Griffin. I'm actually going to point this out for myself. Courser and Griffin. Very interesting. Alright, this might actually turn out to be a nice way of covering the Take One market. Just cycling through the ships as we go every week, and finding ships that are actually probably worth it to start producing or to invest in a blueprint original for. Hyperion next, typical Take One chart, honestly, starts at pretty much 240 million, ends at 230 million. If we narrow it, if we take averages a little bit, let's say. So I think that this is okay, a normal chart for For the battleships, availability very low. Battleships are out of the meta. So 234 million for the sellers, 250 million for the buyers. Decently small margin. Basically have variations in between that. This is only 20-25 million on from the lowest to the highest point. So it's very tricky to actually make some trades on any of this, around 10%. But honestly, the averages look quite okay. Next up here, we've got the Imicus actually going to a low point. So on average, again, 450,000 ISK, something like that. Bit of a jump up to 500,000 ISK here. But then I guess the industrial response was just too great. And we went down to 350,000 ISK at a low point. We're still recovering from that. So currently 430,000 for the sellers, 330,000 for the buyers. Obviously not something you want to produce at the moment. You have better looking charts. Next up, we've got the Oracle. Although it does start at 95 million here, the chart, I'm liking it around 80-85 million on average. So not much to say. Typical Take One chart. Availability actually a little bit better than I thought it would be, although there's not a lot of fresh oracles coming in except for 88 of them here at 82 million. Probably an okay sell order here. This could on the way up be picked up, but it's also going to put a bit of a ceiling, a bit of stability in the Oracle market, and I think that that's actually okay. So this is looking like an alright normal Take One chart, but not exactly one that you would say it's time to start producing these, or it's especially worth it to buy this blueprint. Next up, we've got the Osprey. That's a weird chart here. Medium daily price of 7.8 million, screwing it up a little bit, but starts at 9.4 million, ends at 9.6 million. Again, pretty average. A little bit higher at the start, a little bit lower throughout the summer, but recovering quite nicely. So again, very low availability, extremely low availability. You might want to look into Osprey's 10 million or 9.8 million. Do you make a profit on that? Possibly, but considering the chart, I actually think that you don't make that much of a profit. Next up, the Retriever. I actually think that the Retriever could be pretty popular. Yeah, it's actually crawling out of the hole after the rebalance and the new visual effects, which make it look pretty good. There you go, especially the flame jets here from all the industrial activity on the ship. I don't know what they're doing exactly on board of a Retriever with all the ore that it requires a jet of flames, but looks pretty cool, and went as low as 26 million, recovering back to a normal price of 29 million for the Retriever. Next up here, we've got the Scorpion Galente battleship. Quite surprising here, actually maybe not. Starts in April, which is around the World War B season. You have some volatility from 170 million up a little bit, down substantially, up again. Quite some volatility, but you can see that after the war, everything stabilized again. 165 to 170 million on average. We're ending right there. Availability actually pretty good for the Scorpion, to my surprise. 170 pretty much for the sellers, 155 million for the buyers. Definitely a good Take One chart, showing stability, showing an okay situation both in supply, demand. People not going crazy here, but do you want a Scorpion blueprint original? Probably not, I would say, if you're looking for a blueprint investment. Next up, we've got Talwar. That's more interesting. Starts at 1.2 million, but ends at 1.4 million. You can also see that we are increasing the price at the moment. So this is very low availability. Sellers are at 1.5 million. Buyers are at 1.3 million. I think they're basically being forced up a little bit. So the Talwar is once again, I think we do have that one, something that you could look into. Talwars for 1.5 million. How much profit am I making from a fully researched blueprint? That could be worth it once again, I think, because you can see the low points at 1 million, averages probably 1.2 million. We're well above that at the moment, and actually looks like it's a bit more structural, considering that the 20-day moving average has gone up and that we've been here since early September. And finally, we have the Tornado, which again has some volatility here and there on big buyers, but that's because it's an awesome ganking ship. But we start at 76 million, we end at 76 million. You can also see the decrease in volatility here. So I think that this is basically okay. Availability is not great, but Yeah, sellers at 76 million does show that they basically dictate the price of tornadoes at the moment. But it's decently stable, I would say. Nothing too drastic to report. All right, next up, some Tick 2 ships. That's going to be at 25 minutes. There we go. Let's just look for the volatility, but I'm afraid that it's not going to be great once again. So the basilisks here went from, what would that be? Probably 195 million up to 225 million. 30 million difference. Can you make a trade on that over the course of an entire month? You could, but it's very tricky. And now you can once again see the slow decrease in price back. So I don't think it's volatile enough. We're not seeing something like this, right? Up to 250, back down to 200. That's the volatility we want to see, but just not happening at the moment. Here is the broadsword next, a little bit of volatility at the tail end. At least the charts are not as stable as the June to August period, right? You're seeing some more movement, which could be a sign of things going in the right direction. But this again starts at 250, goes up to 270, not even there. So that's less than 10%, goes back down towards 240, tries to jump back up again, but still it's not enough to make trades on. At least it shows some more volatility here and there. Cerberus, that's interesting, dropping to 200 million, despite the fact that Purity of the Thrones is going at the moment, which the Cerberus is an awesome ship for. So this could be a buy opportunity, honestly. Where are the buyers at? 191 million, sellers are at 200 million, so you can pick up some Cerberus for 200 million or 195 or something like that. Considering this chart, honestly, that is not bad. But again, how long will you have to wait for volatility? That's very difficult to say. Could be a Noslic war, could be a really good high sec event, although personally I think that Purity of the Throne is looking pretty good when it comes to fund participation, scalability, right? You can do as much of that as you want. You can go for all the skins if you want to. You can do even more than that and go for money trying to sell skins, or you can just take your time, gather the skins, be happy with what you have, which is mostly what I'm going for. But yeah, there you go, down to 200 million. I would say Cerberus, if you want to risk some ISK on Tech 2, looks pretty good. Next up here we've got Damnation. After reaching a high point of 400 million, is now recovering back to 320 million on the charts. Sellers 360, buyers 293. Definitely not a bottom yet, but I guess the command ship hype died down a little bit and we're back down. So okay, this is decently volatile, but let's go back here. This is decently volatile, but again, you start at 300 million on July, you end at 400 million end of August, second half of August, and now it takes another month to recover again. So this is not a weekly trade thing that you can do. This is a much more risky. You need a much longer horizon. And this is of course also probably due to CCP's announcements on the boost changes. Next up here, the Hound, again, too stable. Definitely not liking the looks of this. You had one buy opportunity. This jumped from 18 to 20 million. You could make a little bit of a trade on that, but honestly, if that's all there is, considering the war spike here, it's just not worth it. Next up here, we've got the Kronos. Again, we do see a spike here in August up to 1.4 billion, went back down to 1.15 billion, which is a normal price. Going back up a little bit, but 1.225 for the sellers, 1.133 for the buyers. Okay margin. I think this could stop at this point. And on this chart, you have one sell opportunity, very low volume, so it's very tricky to make money here. The Raptor, again, way too stable, not liking any of this. The Saber, again here, war volatility looked pretty good. Buy opportunity below 46 million, that's quite okay, so you could still make this trade. But after that, honestly, we're just slowly going for lower and lower bottoms, and now we're just stable between 50 and 52 million. And yeah, it's not going to be one where you're going to make a lot of money in the short term. The Stork next, that's more interesting, finally. The Stork showed this one spike up to 80 million, back down to 60 million. It's actually going back up already, 75 million for the sellers. This is where you could make some trade money. This is looking pretty good on high volumes, increase again. This is nice. The Stork has been nice. Of course, I missed it because I kept checking the same ships for Tech 2 volatility. But the Command Destroyer Stork looks pretty good. Makes a lot of sense again because I think of the boosting mechanic changes. But this is nice. This is where you can make some money. This is what we're looking for. And at least the Broadsword is showing that some more volatility is trying to seep into the Tech 2 market. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. I'm still not too hot on the market itself, but there are at least some signs that some of the ships are showing more volatility. And then finally we've got the Widow. Let's take a look at that. Also went up from a high point in September, but again takes a full month to reach this. Now we're going back down just to the average of around 1 billion. Volumes of this is of course pretty low as well. So can you make trade money in this? I don't really think so. Next up, the Tech 3 market. That could be pretty interesting. 31 minutes. Like that. Oh, god damn it. I forgot my PI. We'll do that afterwards. We'll do that next. So I'll need to make sure that... so this is Tech 3. And after this, we do PI. All right. Let's take a look at the Confessor chart. Honestly, this is starting to be the pattern for the Destroyers. Staying around 50 million on pretty high availability. 46 million for the bars. They had to come up, so you could have bought these for 40 million a couple of months ago, but now buyers just had to go up to 46 million. Sellers are at 49 million. Decent availability coming in, not in big waves anymore, just a couple up to 5, let's say, sell orders every day coming in here, meaning that we have more stability in the 48 to 50 million price range. The Hecate is probably doing the same, except it's at 47 million price range. Yeah, you can see the more stability coming in here. Sellers, well, that's a bit weirder. Nothing in the last 24 hours, but again, availability, well, this is actually it, so not that great. Buyers also in system, 45 million to 48 million. Again, they had to go up, of course, but if there's one that could shoot up from here, it would be the Hecate, because it's not being brought in big numbers and availability is dropping. So Hecate showing the pattern, but it's, I think it could be manipulated. Jackdaw, interestingly enough, going down a little bit, it would seem. 45.6 for the sellers, 41 million for the buyers. Next up is 38.8 million. And this is 98.32, still quite a lot of them coming in here. 46 million, going down a bit, but not that much. I think it could recover if production moves from the Jackdaw to the Hecate, and I suspect it will. So I think that everything is in place basically. If the producers of these Tech 3 ships are a bit careful and fill the gaps rather than to just dump their stocks, they could keep these pretty stable. Next up here we've got the Zwipel. Well, the Zwipel is not doing too good, although the spike is up to 58 million and we're now going down to 48 million. So it's still in line with the others, but you can see the availability here is much greater. 54, 41, 41, 75, 77. A lot of these all in last 24 hours, going to put pressure on the Zwipel. And the question is, can they not flood the market with switching off of Zwipel and Jackdaw production, moving that to some Hecate production, maybe a little bit more Confessor production. They can do it, but it's gonna be tricky. Maybe 45 million, something like that, could be a price range where they could settle everything down. It's looking okay though for them to actually do this, because we're seeing them be a bit more careful, I think. Next up, the cruisers. That could be more interesting though. The Legion goes up to almost 200 million ISK, 193 for the sellers, 180 million for the buyers. Yeah, look at that. You could have bought them for 130 or 140 million before. Now 200 million. Incredible profits to have been made here. That's pretty amazing. We need to keep this pattern in mind, guys. Summer slump means this last year at least, or this year at least, clearly meant that the wormholes were still active, were still producing their ships, were trying to make their ISK. The demand just wasn't there, so we went to extremely low prices. But once activity picks back up and in preparation of Nullsec wars, Tech 3 fleets are being made, are being bought, and as a result you get this incredible 60 million ISK jump in price here. Pretty easy to have made that, which would be probably 40% or something like that. And if this is a repeating pattern, then this could be something that we could make a lot of money on. Next up here we've got the Loki. Look at that, bottom 135, here 170, now going to settle towards 165 million, something like that. 166 for the sellers, 155 for the buyers. Lovely 30 million profit, not as good as the Legion, but still definitely the same pattern. Next up here we got the Proteus. You could have bought these for 140, 135. Currently selling for 187 million ISK. Very nice profit margin right there. And then finally we've got Tengu that had to give a little bit of ground from 175 to 165. But again, you could have bought those for 140. So selling at 165. Pretty nice profit. We need, I think, to keep this pattern in mind. Summer slump. If they keep producing their Tech 3 ships, we go to really low prices, and that's when we have to make our moves. Try to stock up on some of these cruisers, because they are still incredible ships for the Nullsec wars. They built really nice fleets of that on increased volumes. Thus you get these great opportunities to sell at a really nice profit. Yeah, the Tech 3 market very much alive. I would say that the cruiser market needs to recover from their highs, so you need a little bit of time. I think they will fall back down as these prices are pretty high considering the entire chart. And when it comes to destroyers, we'll have to be careful, or at least the producers will have to be careful, I think, because considering what's still coming in Zwepel numbers and in Jackdaw numbers right here in the last 24 hours, the potential is still there to flood the market on some of these, to crash their prices back down into buy opportunity territory. But if they're careful, then they can actually manage this and probably stabilize these prices at around 45 million. It's all going to depend on whether or not they can diversify their production enough and be patient enough to not dump too much on the market at once. Next up, PI, of course. Let's not forget that. PI at 37.15. 37.15 for PI. Let's go through these. Right here we've got construction blocks settling at 13 million ISK. Considering the chart, this is an okay price, a bit above average, but you could say 11 to 12 million is probably a normal price. Very strong summer for construction blocks here, going up to 15 million. So at the moment you could probably still sell for a pretty good price. I would not advise to stock up on these just yet, but you could still sell, although you're not selling at the best price that you could have in the last few months if we had kept a closer eye on it. Next up, consumer electronics, also very strong summer, slowly going down to 14.5 million, but again obviously above its normal averages, so you can still sell your consumer electronics at the moment for pretty much 14,000 ISK. Looks pretty good. Yeah, 14,000 is here on the chart. Looks pretty good, but it's obviously under pressure after the summer highs here. Next up we've got coolants, 12,000, now ending at 12,000. We're starting to come back to a normal price range for coolants, I think. 12,000 to 12,349 for the sellers. High point was almost 15,000 ISK, but that was a bit more spiky. So I would say coolants has had a pretty average summer, increasing in price from a low point of 9,000 ISK. You can still sell at this range, but you're probably just getting the average coolant price at the moment. Enriched uranium, very strong situation for enriched uranium. Again, may slump to 10,000 ISK, currently selling for around 16,000 ISK. Pretty good stuff. If you're making enriched uranium, you definitely want to try to get it to the market right now, because you're getting an awesome price. Very strong summer overall in a lot of the PI stuff. Mechanical parts then, this is a different story. 9,000 ISK. It has been the average throughout the summer, but I don't think this is a great price. You could actually, I think, do okay with holding off on mechanical parts if you can have the patience for it and wait for this to increase in price, because as we can see right here, 10,000, 11,000 ISK is not completely crazy for mechanical parts. Although the averages, 9,000 ISK, here we have 9,500 to 10,000 as an average. So this is the 1 year chart, by the way. I would say if you can hold on to your mechanical parts and be a bit patient, I think you could actually do pretty good on that, because at the moment we're decently low for them. Next up we've got oxygen. 500 ISK is probably a good price. A bit above average, definitely a bit above average, so not much to say. Oxygen, if you're producing that, you're doing okay to sell it. It's of course very easily made, just a processed material, so this gets flooded and it's pretty constant. I would say be happy if you're trying to sell some oxygen, because you're getting a good price. Robotics next, 100,000 ISK. Someone requested that I show like a robotics manufacturing planet. It's going to be pretty low yield if you do it in low sec. Honestly, if you want in on this market, low sec wormhole space is probably where you're going to want to go for that, because you can get awesome planets with like high sec static C1, C2s that are decently safe, and where you can then set up your PI, set up your own POCOs. And if you can then find the right planet, I think it's plasma planet, you can actually produce your own robotics in a closed cycle on a single planet. I think that is pretty awesome. Just going from 0 to robotics, no taxes when you're unloading them, that could make you a lot of money. In general, 100,000 ISK looks like to be a pretty good price, again a bit above its average, coming off of a pretty good summer right here for robotics. Next up we've got rocket fuels, actually shooting up to 13,000 ISK. So very nice. Almost 13,000 for the sellers, 11,200 for the buyers. Rocket fuels, guys, if you have them, sell it, because it's looking like a high point is forming here. Self-harmonizing power core, 2.4 million, basically average, considering this is probably a spike up due to the Citadel expansion, then a pretty big slump back to 2 million, which is obviously below average. 2.4 million, quite okay to purchase, I would say. To sell as well, but you're right where the market is normally going to settle, I think. Supercomputers next. Man, that's a weird chart, still a weird chart. 120,000 ISK to 140 is the average current price. Let's take a look at that. 132, 142,000 and 105,000. So this is a weird chart. I think it's desynced or something. But what I think the current situation is, once again, that we're, if you're counting 142,000 ISK here as the seller start, then we're once again just above the averages, an okay time to sell. Superconductors next here, completely different story from most of the other ones. Big spike with the Citadel expansion, falling back to 12,000 ISK, which is a tiny bit above its average, but pretty much on its average, especially considering sellers are coming in below 12,000 ISK. So this is just an average price. If you want to sell, it's routine. If you want to hold on for a better opportunity, it may be okay to do so as well. Probably 50-50 between those two. Test cultures next, crawling out of a pretty low of 7,000 ISK, currently 9,000 ISK. The 1 year chart could be interesting here. 9,000 ISK, an okay price on average if you consider the start of the chart last year. Of course, if you consider these two price spikes, not too hot, but probably once again, considering the entire chart, we're right around the average or just above that. So it's still okay to sell your test cultures at the moment. And finally, wetware mainframe, 2.5 million, right back on its average after the Citadel jump up here. So looking okay to both sell and buy these at the moment. Pretty strong demand, I would say. 10,000 units coming in here at 2,500 is 2.5 million is going to put a clear bottom right here. So of course, if there's a lot of increased demand due to the industrial race coming in November, then wetware mainframes and self-harmonizing power cores could actually jump up substantially. So this is why it's on its average price, so it's probably okay to sell, but it's on its average price, so it's probably a really good time to buy as well. You're looking at okay markets, some great sell opportunities, and not really anything that I would say hold off, except maybe the mechanical parts. You could probably get a better price for these. All right, I didn't forget PI. It's a new routine that I need to incorporate in my EVE talks, and so I need to make sure that I remind myself to keep checking this one. For the extra materials at 45 minutes, yeah, it's gonna be the Purity of the Throne skins, because I want to see what they're going for, what their availability is looking like. So ship skins, oh my god, this is bad. We can't really do it from here, because this is going to be almost impossible. Oh, but we can, of course, just as I did with the video, we can do just straight up Purity, because it's apparently the only good that uses that part in its name. There we go. Right, the charts are not going to tell us a lot, but the sellers and the buyers are going to give us a good idea. Abaddon Purity skin, sellers 18 million, so 20 million easy pickup, buyers 10 million. Absolution Purity skin, 16 million, yeah, 16 million, buyers 8.2 million. Aeon, that's interesting because this is super capital, 28 million, going for a bit more, apparently a bit more rare then as a result, but definitely not outside the range of anyone wanting to purchase these. Anathema, 12 million, pretty cheap, so I would say, considering what I'm seeing here and what I have myself as drops, you're going from frigates up to super capital Titan class, and frigates have the best drop rate chance, and then the bigger you go, the lower the chance gets, with of course the Titans and the Aeons, for instance, having the lowest drop rate. But the disparity between them doesn't seem to be unreasonable, because I've already had an Aeon drop and 2 Revelation drops, so it actually looks like it's definitely done in a very fair way. Apocalypse going for 13 million for the Apocalypse Navy issue Purity skin. Then the normal Apocalypse going for 18 million, more than the Navy Apocalypse. But I guess that's normal, because more people will be able to fly Apocalypses than Navy issues, and so there could be a bit more demand for these. But again, below 20 million. Apostle going for 17 million. There is a very good explanation for this. The Apostle skin came out a bit later, so was added to the loot table a bit later, which is why it maybe has to recover a little bit more. But I think the pressure is on and it will go down as well. Arbitrator, 12 million. Archon, 76 million. Still going pretty strong. Again, probably a decent amount of people fly Archons compared to Aeons, which is why the Aeon skin going for 29 million and the Archon skin going for 76 million. That could just be straight up demand. So an Archon skin is actually a pretty decent drop, because that's not bad for the 5 minutes it takes to run one of these sites. Arc, 17 million. Armageddon Navy issue, 10 million. Normal Armageddon, 20 million. Augurer, 10 million. 13 million. We're just going to Bestower, 3.5 million. So we're just going to go through this very quickly at this point. 90 million for the Confessor. Again, because it's more recent than the other ones, I think you can also see there are not that many coming to the market. Crucifier Navy issue, 6.5, 5 million, 9 million. You do see that pattern, right? Frigates are definitely more available than all the other ones, and they're going for a much lower price. But again, 20 million for the Curse, 12 million for the Damnation, the Deacon 8 million, the Voter 25 million. All of these are really reasonable prices. 50 million for the Guardian, that's interesting. That's pretty high actually. 13.8 for the Harbinger Navy issue, 8 million for the Harbinger. Heretic at 9, 11 million. Impel, nothing. 2.4 million for the Inquisitor skin. Not a lot of people want that, I guess, or fly Inquisitors. Malediction for 17. Omen for 24. Oracle for 24 million. For such a good looking skin. My god, look at that. I think that looks amazing. The Oracle is just such a good looking ship. Almost any skin can be made to work on that. It's crazy. You can have these flat colors like this, which I think look great because of all the the lines that you have in the armor, but you can also have like different color skins can be made into awesome patterns as well. Just an incredible ship here. Definitely one of the best looking ships in my opinion in EVE. Paladin, even the Paladin, which is Marauder, only going for 15 million. Pilgrim 20, Pontifex 9, Prorator 9, Providence 12 million. Really not seeing a lot. Redeemer going for 40 million, still a little bit more. Retribution, Sacrilege, Revelation 30 million. I have 2 of these. Do I want to sell them? Yeah, probably. Sentinel, not a lot. Sigil 12, and for this 20 million. So okay, I would say for the sub-capital skins, battleship, cruiser, battlecruiser, 20 million. You're getting any of those you want. For the smaller stuff, frigates, destroyers, 10 million. You're getting most of them. A couple of the capital skins are a bit more expensive, but nothing is more than 100 million. So this is extremely available. The market is being flooded by these purity skins at the moment. That means that if you want the entire collection, it's definitely doable just with money, just with ISK, if you don't want to spend all your time hunting for these. Me personally, I'm actually enjoying this, the sites. I'm enjoying the content of it, so I'm going to keep hunting for some of them. Going to try to earn as many of them as possible, but seeing this, I don't feel the pressure to go all out to try and like make money of it or anything like that, because it's not going to be that great to try and make money off of these sites. Yeah, my goal is actually to buy at least all of the Tech 1 versions, because those are the ships I'm most likely to fly, and yeah, it's very doable. Obviously, I think the best tactic is to, if you enjoy the content, play it up until it stops, and in the final weekend then go in, purchase the ones that you actually want, and then you're ready for it, because that's when I think the flood will have been at its high point. You'll have them at the cheapest price, and I like it. I like this, honestly. I like the Purity of the Throne event here, because it's actually very scalable. If you want to go all out looking for Titan skins, did I see the... that's interesting. Where is the Avatar? 38 million. Very, very doable for a Titan skin, of course. So, yeah, but this is also, that makes the site worth it. So if you want to go all out, you want to grind these like crazy, you can do that, and you'll have stuff like the Avatar skin dropping, which will make you a decent amount of money, and it will make it somewhat worth it. But if you're interested in hunting for all of those skins, it's doable, I think, even in high sec, or just jumping into wormhole space, low sec, things like that. And if you want to still gather them all but not have to grind all of them, they're definitely very affordable. So there is stuff to do in this event for everyone, which I think makes this a pretty good success. And yeah, there you go, guys. Purity of the Throne skins. If you want to buy them, they're pretty cheap at the moment, so definitely do so, I would say. And then that is the one gamble you can take, which I'm going to take. All of my super capitals and capital skins I'm not selling and I'm not using. I'm gonna hold off on these, and I'm hoping that CCP doesn't put these in the market. If that happens, then they could definitely increase in value, and you could actually yeah, make some actual ISK out of a bit of a risk like that. Of course, if they put them in the market, then it's not worth it anymore, and then I'll probably just use the ones I have and sell the rest for whatever price they're going for. But yeah, Purity of the Throne skins, guys, very affordable, and I'm definitely going to purchase or manage to get all the ones that I want. Pretty awesome. That's going to be it for this EVE talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.